Former U.S. President Donald Trump has landed in Atlanta, where he is set to turn himself in to a local jail this hour.
He will be booked at the Fulton County facility on charges that he illegally schemed to overturn his 2020 election loss in Georgia. All right, let's take a look now at live pictures of the jail in Atlanta where Mr. Trump is set to surrender.
Yes, his motorcade making its way there. The 77-year-old will be indicted on 13 felony counts, including racketeering. He will also have his mugshot taken, the first for any former U.S. leader. Bail has previously been agreed upon at $200,000.
Mr. Trump's legal troubles come as the race to the White House heats up. Despite his mounting woes, he remains the frontrunner for the Republican ticket in next year's presidential election.
Now, for more on Mr. Trump's mounting legal troubles and the implications for U.S. politics, let's speak with Charles Lipson. He's the Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Chicago and a columnist with The Spectator. He joins us from Chicago. Professor, a former U.S. president facing criminal charges is actually pretty rare, but for Mr. Trump, this is his fourth criminal indictment. How is this one different from the classified documents, the hush money payments, and the January 6 charges?
Well, it's different in several ways. The first is that it is a local state level charge being brought by a district attorney for the county, the jurisdiction around the city of Atlanta. That's important because the other charges are subject to his own pardon. He could pardon himself if elected, or if a Republican were elected and decided to pardon him. That can't happen in Georgia, not only because it's a state-level charge, but because of the nature of the charges. The other thing is that it involves a lot of co-defendants, and the allegation made by the district attorney is that they conspired in illegal ways to do something illegally, which is to overturn the legitimate vote in the state of Georgia. In the United States, as your viewers know, each state's votes count for so many electoral votes, and Trump would have needed to overturn Georgia and several other states, not just Georgia, in order to retain the presidency.
Professor, Georgia police say Mr. Trump is being treated just like everyone else. And so for the first time, he's going to have his mugshot taken. How significant is this, and how much is Mr. Trump going to exploit that mugshot to his benefit?
He'll exploit it to his benefit for a number of reasons. The first is that a lot of Republicans feel that some of these charges are just outrageous. They think that he is being prosecuted for things that other people didn't do, or for very thin reasons. The most serious charge in a way is this one in Georgia, and the one in that has been filed by the special counsel Jack Smith. Those are the most serious in the allegations that he actually did things to overturn the very heart of a democracy, which is the peaceful transfer of power. But they are not the easiest cases to prove. The easiest case to prove is actually the one in Florida, where he didn't return documents to the United States that he had, and most importantly, that he told federal investigators that he didn't have any more such documents, when in fact he did. So that's called obstruction of justice, and the evidence on that is actually very strong, even though the charge itself is not as important politically as the other charges.
You mentioned earlier about this case is not just about Trump. There are 18 other co-defendants. Some of them have already been booked. What does it mean that this case involves so many people?
it means that it will be very difficult to get it to court in any timely manner. But it's interesting, the development today is that one of the defendants has demanded a very rapid trial, which under Georgia law, he has a right to do. That would allow him to break away from the other defendants, and most importantly, allow the Trump legal team to see in court all of the opposition's arguments that would be used against them. Now, I don't know what the judge will say, but there were a lot of people who were very concerned about the nature of this conspiracy indictment, because under the indictment, for two reasons. One is that under the indictment, things that are perfectly legal normally can be charged as being part of this conspiracy. And the other thing that disturbs people is that it's being brought by not the state attorney general in the state of Georgia, but by a local prosecutor. And there are thousands of those prosecutors across America. And so that leads to the possibility that Republican prosecutors will do the same thing against a future Democratic president, or perhaps even the current one. So you could get into a retaliation situation.
Mr. Trump's challenges, legal challenges, continue to mount, but his momentum is not waning. He's still connecting deeply with voters. How is he able to sustain his popularity in the face of all of this? And is this particular case going to have any bearing on his political future?
I think that it's uncertain whether voters will slowly take account of all of these mounting legal troubles. As I say, they've taken account of them partially by thinking that they're unfair, and that really began when the first charge was filed in New York, which seemed to be a particularly thin charge, something that a lot of real estate people had done, and so forth, and that uh, and you could see his popularity shot up at that time. The person who brought it, Alvin Bragg, another local prosecutor, was had campaigned on the idea that he would go after Trump. So it didn't look like a fair and even-handed justice, and that helped Trump. But frankly, it's just uncertain over time whether these will begin to take a toll on Trump, both personally and politically, as voters begin to assess whether or not some of the charges are actually true. Final point: Trump transformed the electorate of the Republican Party and made it into much more of a working class party with a lot of opposition to the centralized state in Washington. And the fact that he is being prosecuted by precisely that state looks as if it ratifies so many of the things that he said negatively about the United States government.
All right, Professor, appreciate the context and the commentary. Professor Charles Lipson from the University of Chicago.